Sardell stepped out of the cage and stopped so quickly the soldier nearly tripped over her. Icy wind buffeted her, whipping at her dress and raising gooseflesh on her arms. She gaped at the black stone fortress around her, around the tiny valley where merchants had once sold cheese and crops in the summer, and where a wide road and bridge had led over the river and to the back gate leading to Galmuck Mountain. The Goat Peak River was still there, half iced over as it meandered through the large courtyard within the fortress walls, but there was nothing inviting about it, or the valley anymore. The crenellations and cannon-like weapons on the walls were as forbidding as the ice blades themselves, the snow-covered peaks rising in all four directions around the valley, scraping the sky as they towered another 5,000 feet above the already lofty valley. Most of the peaks hadn't changed, but Galmuck. She stared in horror. It looked like a volcano rather than the majestic mountain it had once been, its upper walls slumped inward with a misshapen bowl where the peak had once been. The soldier shoved her. "Get going, girl." Sardell wrenched her gaze from the view and stumbled down a path that hadn't been there the last time she had been outside. Just yesterday, her mind wanted to add, though she had accepted by now that it had not been yesterday. Aside from the 3 centuries that had passed, it had been summer when she had entered Galmuck, and warm enough for her dress. Now she wrapped her arms around herself as she picked her route, the trail following the tram line down toward the center of the fortress. There were other holes in the mountain, other tram tracks plunging into the darkness. What were they mining for? Crystal? Hadn't one of her attackers said that? She couldn't imagine what sort of crystal they had found in there, though she did recall gold and silver veins in the area. A smelter set up on the far side of the fortress seemed to suggest the likelihood of precious metal mining. Another push nearly made her stumble.
"You act like you haven't seen this all before. I've got a report to put together. Walk faster."
He pointed at a large stone building with laundry hanging on a line, whipping in the breeze as it dried in the meager sun. "That's where we're going?" Even as Sardell asked, a pair of women strode out of another building and headed for the one with the laundry lines. They wore heavy wool dresses and socks, scarves, hats, and fur jackets as they carried baskets of linens.
"Yes," the soldier said, drawing out the syllable as if he were talking to an imbecile.
Sardell sighed and headed in the indicated direction. At least there were women here. She ought to be able to get information from them, one way or another. Maybe, given time, she could figure out a way to arrange a meeting with that general. She walked over a bridge, but paused at the top, realizing her unfriendly guide had fallen behind. He had stopped to stare into the western sky. A strange flying craft was banking around Bandit Mountain and angling toward the fortress. Flying. She hadn't quite believed it when Jaxie had mentioned it, but the bronze metallic craft clearly wasn't a bird. With wings outstretched and something on the tips that resembled talons, it did vaguely resemble a dragon, at least the ones Sardell had seen illustrated in books, the creatures having been extinct for 1,000 years or more now. Some sort of rotating fan buzzed, keeping the contraption aloft.
"A propeller," Jaxie said dryly.
"Hush. Just because you've been reading books these past centuries doesn't mean I have. What's powering it?"
The soldier, muttering to himself, distracted Sardell, and she didn't hear the answer. "What's this about?" the man asked. "Supplies and prisoners came in yesterday. Shouldn't be anything due for 2 weeks."
"Whatever it is, it could be an escape chance for you." "I'm not leaving without you, Jaxie."
"I'm not going to suffocate or die here. You can come back when you can."
The fortress didn't look like it would be any easier to sneak into than it would be to sneak out of. Besides, where would she go? This had been, home.
"There is that."
A mental sigh accompanied Jaxie's comment. The flying contraption banked again. It was circling the valley like an osprey, searching for a fish to snatch out of a lake. None of the soldiers on the ramparts were racing for the cannons, so Sardell assumed it was a friendly aircraft, though everyone was watching it draw closer with curiosity. It angled for the wide, flat roof of the biggest building in the fortress, a 2-story structure backing up to one of the walls. A flat roof was a strange choice for mountains that received many feet of snow every year. The other buildings had steeply pitched tops, as one would expect, but as the craft lowered, she realized that particular spot must have been designed for landing, though she couldn't imagine how it might be done. An osprey might be able to fold its wings in and alight on a perch, but a man-made craft wouldn't have that ability, surely. It seemed to be designed for going straight ahead, needing those wide banking turns to switch direction, but some sort of thrusters rotated down from the wings, allowing the bronze contraption to slow down without falling out of the sky. Soon it was hovering over the building, and then it lowered, the bottom half disappearing from her sight. And I thought the rifles were impressive. Jaxie didn't respond. Maybe she was investigating the craft. A few soldiers jogged out of the second story of that big building and headed up the stairs to the roof. Their presence seemed to remind her guard of his duty, for he joined her on the bridge, pointing to the laundry building again.
Let's go. We'll find out soon enough who's visiting.